All right.
All right, we live.
So we
So,
can start by discussing the fact that Kamala Harris had a book, or not Kamala Harris, but an author had put out a book about Kamala Harris on Amazon and had their book taken down several occasions, apparently due to copyright infringement, which is a load of bullshit, honestly. I don't know if can we say that on live?
yeah, we can say it. Let's try to save it for the like a minute and change into the video though.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that it was taken down due to the fact that it was critical of Kamala Harris, and it wasn't really like a hit piece per se because the guy was neutral. He was, nonpartisan, but it was kind of putting her in an unfavorable light. And now that she's the presumptive nominee, it seems like people are going to be trying to basically take down any possible criticisms wherever they can. And by people, I mean the White House and the powers that be, which, have a vested interest in her now as the candidate.
Well, I would imagine that they would do that. The only problem is that most of the negative things about Kamala Harris that we know come from her own party. There was a very vicious presidential debate that happened 4 years ago that she was a part of, and she was Joe Biden's opponent in that debate, in those debates, and they really went after each other and told a lot of truths about each other. I think it's more damaging what was said about her by her own party than probably anything that was said about her that could be said about her outside. Right? I think it holds more credence when the president of the United States says that that you are a racist part of a racist agenda. You didn't help black people out. You know,
Oh yeah, the whole point is right. She did put a lot of people into prison, and actually most of them were people who were of a minority background. And you could call her own people, her own people of color and whatnot. And whatever the politically correct term is, because it seems like she kind of caters to the left in a lot of ways, but doesn't really live up to a lot of the expectations of the progressives. So the progressives don't even like her, and the right doesn't like her for sure. But I'm trying to figure out who is actually going to vote for her, and I'm hoping that obviously the better candidate wins and prevails here, but a lot of times it's just smoke and mirrors, a lot of deception. They'll say one thing to get into office and then do another once they're in there. So based
well,
on her voting record.
I think it's bigger than what she's going to do or what she's not going to do. I think this election, um, prior to Biden stepping down, there's some things in America that are historical momentum shifts in elections, right? Trump being shot or not shot
Right.
or the assassination attempt is a definite election shifting moment, right? It almost guarantees him the presidency. Now, the Democrat Party could have laid down and accepted um, that they lost this race, but they didn't. They went into a mode of trying to figure out what could be another election shifting thing, right?
Mm, right.
Immediately after Trump got shot, Biden came down with COVID, president coming down with a deathly illness, right? That's
Mm,
election shifting. It didn't get the effect that was wanted, though, right? They could have kept that a secret, but they didn't keep it a secret. And I think the reason they didn't keep it a secret is because it was a sympathy play. Unfortunately, Biden's health has always been an issue in this
of
election.
course.
And so by him getting sick, it actually just piled on. It didn't get the sympathy. It actually ramped up the calls for him to step down.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, once Biden steps down, you bring Kamala Harris up. And if you notice, Barack Obama was hesitant and to support Harris. And I think the hesitation came from not knowing if the shift would happen with her. And the shift is, does she go from black people hating her, which was her identity under Joe Biden, right, to black people loving and supporting her, right? To her being the first black woman. So her
Right.
being um so it might not look like she's a threat, but I think she holds a very significant threat to a candidate specifically like Trump, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
She is like the kryptonite to his Superman, if you would call it that.
Yeah, well, definitely she can't he can't be calling her the same things he would call another male candidate, male white candidate, because it would come off as very, potentially bigotous or like racist. And that, like you said, it could be like any attacks that he would typically do to target his enemies could come off as bullying or aggressive and like really actually play in her favor. And what I find interesting too is like a lot of people would label the Democrats as socialists, but in reality, the only socialist candidate we ever had was really Bernie Sanders in the recent like history of America, and then he was far more popular than her. And on top of that, it's interesting to note that her father was actually a very well-known Marxist economist. He actually often would support the Marxist vision of economics, and he's well known for that, for publishing works that are in at least sympathetic, if not completely aligned with the communist ideologies. And he came out himself and was very critical of her, saying that Jamaicans all smoke weed, and like, well, of course she would have smoked weed at some point in her life, and that made they made a very big rift between them. Actually, he denounced her because of that, and I'm thinking it's more than that. It's probably there's some things in principle that she also misaligns with him about. Um, and please excuse the noise. It's like
Yeah, I know. It's all good, man. But Kamala Harris poses a danger to Trump because she checks off the boxes. In this world we have of equity and equality, where jobs have to hire people based on their race, their sex, gender, sexual preference, and all of that. There's a requirement that they cover to check these boxes off in hiring, right? Um, so jobs have a choice in hiring a white male, uh, black female, Asian, homosexual, LGBTQ member, or many other things. They have choices of picking those people. And what they do is they'll hire one person that checks off all of the boxes. That way they can hire more people that they feel are better qualified for the job. So Kamala Harris checks off a lot of dangerous boxes for Donald Trump. For instance, Kamala Harris checks off the woman box, right? Which has always been a difficult group of people for Trump to win over, is the
right,
women in the country. So her being a woman and her being the first woman is is a major point. Then you have the never Trump, the I hate Trump crew, right? The people who
right,
are willing to vote for Joe Biden, even though they knew that he was mentally unfit for the job. Those people will be voting for Kamala Harris, guaranteed, right? Also, you have the entire Jamaican voting community of America. They will all be registering and lining up to vote for Kamala Harris in this
of
voting
course.
season.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
This is
Nationalism at least. The pride in
right.
their country.
This is without question. So
Yeah.
Kamala Harris
Are you
has
voting for her? Being
no,
a Jamaican?
no. I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. I don't vote for people based on who
Background.
they are.
Yeah.
Not even who I don't vote on based on who they are. I vote on them based on what they've done and what they will do. Right.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, for the last 8 years, the Democrat Party has their agenda has been to beat Donald Trump. I've listened to
Yes.
Trump and I've listened to all of the Democrats, and the only thing I've ever heard promised from a Democrat is that they would beat Donald Trump once, and they did
Yeah.
beat Donald Trump. And then once they got in and beat Donald Trump, they had no more promises to
Right. They
fulfill.
they have no platform. They have no legitimate like agenda that people can really
No,
align with and vibe with.
no. Every person that goes up, that steps forward as a Democrat a personality or talking point, their 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 speaking point is, I am the right person to defeat Donald Trump. They all have unanimously said that at one point or another when it was their time to try to get some votes. I am the person that can beat Donald Trump. They've
Right.
not promised anything.
Right. Instead of I can make college affordable or homes affordable, I can make healthcare affordable, or lay out a concrete plan for how to get those things done. It's more of like, oh, let's stop the tyrant from getting back into office. Now, granted, he has done some questionable things, and a lot of which I have issue with. But realistically speaking, I don't see him becoming the tyrant that people are afraid he is going to become. Like, yes, of course, he's beaten a lot of the charges against him, but now finally these felony charges have stuck. But that might even be overturned by a higher court anyway. And now, being that the Supreme Court is largely conservative and in his favor, they're going to most likely vote in his favor, aligned with whatever it is that it would benefit him. And there's a lot of issues that I have with him as a person, as a president. There are some things I do like. Of course, the fact that there was less conflict, the fact that the economy was doing well, but realistically, we can't attribute that all to him. The only thing that the president is completely in control of is the military, commander in chief. Everything else he has to work with people to get done. And even the president is supposed to get an official declaration of war passed through Congress before they initiate conflicts, but that hasn't been the case for the last who knows how many years now, since Vietnam. And nobody's actually declared war since probably World War II. So, like, the reality is, the president is actually able to send troops wherever they please for whatever reason they please, and has a mandate to do so. But
Right.
it's about a matter of, like, where are our resources going? Are they going to help us by going into this nation or not? Are we helping the world, not just ourselves, by going into this country, or are we not? Is there a selfish kind of ulterior motive going on here, where there's some powerful forces behind the scenes pulling the strings, and the military industrial complex benefiting from it? So realistically, there's always going to be some benefactors behind the scenes, whether we realize it or not. So, like, is it benefiting Trump to go to war? And I would
Okay.
argue, I don't think so. And that's probably why he was not so engaged in war, and he kind of was hands off, allowing the military to do whatever they please. And to
Okay.
some
You
extent,
said
that was
something
effective.
interesting to me. You said that you have some reason or some questionable things about his presidency, or about him in general as a person. Can you, like, um highlight some of those things, some of the issues? Because you seem like a more level-headed person, and I've never really heard any real issues that people have with Trump that I see as valid. But I do trust your opinion. So could you? Yo, we done right now. Yes, it is. Alarm, ask if I'm programmed.